My name is Michael Betel, and I am the president and founder of the Fatty Liver Alliance. And today's special guest is Michael Goran, professor of pediatrics and the program director for diabetes and obesity at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, and one of the world's most widely recognized experts in childhood nutrition and obesity research. Today, we'll be talking about diabetes and obesity in children, as well as approaches to healthy eating. Michael, would you say that the incidence of diabetes and obesity in children is increasing?
Yeah, certainly the numbers are increasing. There's been a lot of reports of that increase, especially accelerated by COVID in the last couple of years. There's not any that I'm aware of. There's no recent national updates on the prevalence, but I think there's plenty of other smaller reports to show increases in both obesity and diabetes, which I don't know if the increase is linear because it's been increasing for the last 20, 30 years. I don't know if the last couple of years has been a faster increase or not, but it's certainly generally increasing over the last 20 years.
Okay, but it's never too late to do something about it, right?
Right, that's totally right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's never too late to prevent or try to treat both obesity and diabetes. I mean, luckily the prevalence of type 2 diabetes in kids is not tremendously high, but it is increasing. And you can certainly slow down or even prevent the progression from being overweight to developing type 2 diabetes.
Well, where would a parent start? I know that you believe that kids are going to have to take on some of the responsibility on their own as well, especially as they get older. But what should people do to start?
Yeah, well, I think it depends. It really depends on where families are, how old the kids are, whether they're just concerned or whether there is extreme weight gain or even presence of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's kind of a spectrum. But I think it all starts with the family, in terms of talking about kids, we're talking generally about parental modeling and what you bring into the house and trying to get kids on healthier foods, off of processed foods. I mean, the same kind of strategies that as adults know of, is just translating that to a child is not always easy.
And I know that you did a little of self-experimentation, which I love personally, and you looked at different foods. So it's not always just the food on its own, right? Sometimes it's a combination of foods that's a healthier approach. So I don't know if you want to just mention how that chemistry works.
Well, I think it's to do really with the old-fashioned idea, the old idea that a calorie is a calorie. And I think the kind of common understanding of this problem is that it's all about the calories. But really, we've learned a lot about not just the calories, but how those different types of calories are processed and what the metabolic impact is of them. And also, I mean, I'm not answering your question yet, but the other thing I'll say is this issue, it's not just about weight. I mean, weight is often, for parents, weight is often the kind of obvious warning sign, but for adults and children, it's not just about weight, it's about what's going on metabolically. It's a bit like you might have a good looking car, but it doesn't run very well. And you got to look under the hood sometimes. And that's the issue with obesity. You could have a beaten up car that looks terrible, but it still runs very well. So it's all about the engines of the car, and that for the body, that's metabolism. And the way to look at that is to see how the body's processing food. And that's where I'm going to get to answering your question. So people process foods differently. And in terms of diabetes risk, it's all about the glycemic response. And we're learning a lot about how different bodies process calories differently.
Okay. And well, you talk about a car, which is a good analogy in this case too, because there's a lot of systems in a car. I've had cars, and there's always one system faults that fails, and then another system, and so especially with older cars. So when you're looking at things like cardiovascular disease, the fatty liver, diabetes, they are all interrelated, and so but sugar seems to be part of that process somehow. How would you relate the sugar to all of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, from my perspective, and that's why I wrote the book Sugarproof that we'll talk about. But from what we've learned from our research is that, I mean, there's no one dietary culprit, there's no one magic bullet dietary culprit. But what we learned is that if you had to pick one thing from the diet that was causing all these problems that you just mentioned, weight gain, diabetes, fatty liver, dietary sugar for children or adults seems to be a common denominator. And that often equates with processed foods as well, since 70% of processed foods contain some type of added sugars. So what we found from the research is that dietary sugars are associated with worsening of metabolic profile, worsening of weight gain trajectories, and sometimes more strikingly in children. So sugar is not good for us, but what we've seen is that sugar is more potent for ruining the body, for destroying the car engine. If you're a child,
If you're a car too.
so if you're a new car, aka a young child, too much sugar becomes more damaging to the body.
Okay. And if people want to get your book, can you talk about that just a little bit, so that people have an idea of what it's about and how it can help their families?
Yeah, so we wrote the book Sugarproof. There's a copy of the paperback version, which, and the book's available bookstores, Amazon, etc. But what we did with the book was the first half of the book is talking about how and why sugars are so bad for the body, and especially so bad for growing bodies. And we go into the science of that to help families understand the problem. And the second half of the book is how to fix that. So we have a lot of simple strategies for families who might want to take this on. It's a big issue, so there's simple everyday solutions, and there's meal plans, there's recipes, there's different ways you can do that. And a lot of times it's families are involve multiple people, so of different ages and different preferences. So it's not always a straightforward process, but in the book we help families kind of grapple with that and tailor a plan that works for their family. And then we have all kinds of recipes in there and simple swaps. For example, one simple swap would be, most kids love peanut butter or ketchup, right? But most peanut butters and ketchups have a ton of added sugar in them when it doesn't really have to be there. So one simple swap is just to find a healthier alternative of some of those everyday brands. And we have recipes to take like everyday family favorites. For example, breakfast muffin, or pancakes, or even just a cake or cookie. And what we did was I developed recipes that don't have any added sugars. And we've taste tested them and had great feedback from those recipes. So we have everything from like simple swaps, daily hacks, recipes, meal plans, and challenges that families can use to try and get off of sugar.
Well, that's really great. This is a journey for sure for anybody. It's also not easy to find some products. I know I've looked for the natural peanut butter. If you can find a peanut butter that just has peanuts and salt, they're very hard to find on the shelf. So we try to find our couple brands and then we go back to those stores. And so I'm sure that, the book's filled with tips. And I thank you so much for sharing what you did with us today. I know you're going to help a lot of people because that first step is the toughest one, right?
Yeah, it's the first. The first step is always the hardest, and it's a big issue, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing type of thing. And so, I'm a tennis player, and on tennis, when things are looking rough, we say one shot at one point at a time, or even one shot at a time. So it's the same kind of thing here. Like if there's one small thing you can do today, then that would be a big help and a big step in the right direction. And also just to say that I think the strategy is not saying you have to give up sugar and you can never have sugar again. So that's just a strategy that's not going to work.
Mm.
Um, I had some ice cream last night. It was delicious. It was a lovely treat. It was a hot evening. Fine. We're not saying you can never have ice cream again. But so it's about making small steps and small adjustments so that you and your family can kind of lower the burden. It's not all or nothing. It's not like that you get the benefits just if you quit sugar forever. You'll get benefits from just cutting it back even by a small amount.
All right. That's good advice. Thank you so much again.
My pleasure, Mike. It's always nice to talk to you.
Thank you.